I have not to date have anyone who has walked in and said, I am a rape victim. It is something almost impossible to talk about. Most people live with it on their own. General advice is, oh yeah, okay, now you'll get over it, forget it. The victim almost never forgets. They may not talk about it, they may whitewash it in their brain, but the trauma of what they have been through will stay with them forever. Reliving, re-talking, re-relating, re-recording is equally traumatic.
What do you think is involved emotionally and legally when they step into this process?
You sit across a misogynistic inspector and you tell him, I want to file a case of rape. You're not going to be looked on kindly.
The next most traumatic thing in a rape case is to go to the police station and report it.
You would probably have some friends who would say, Arey, it's okay, he's just your boyfriend.
The minute you are a victim, you are helpless. Stop being a victim.
Are you mentally prepared to sit through all these cases?
It's a very serious topic, and yet I see my friends, peers, acquaintances joking, actively laughing about instances like this. Consent has become a joke in social media.
The word rape itself is so horrific that nobody wants to use it. The best lawyers and high court judges are still human beings and they will still cringe at the word.
It's just sad to know that you have to have a sensationalized rape case and a large media outcry for laws to become more stringent or, for the parliament to wake up.
Parents, get your act together.
Did you know of the 31,667 cases reported in India, nearly 89% of them were committed by a person known to the victim? That's not even the worst part. 99% of the rape cases in India go unreported. Welcome to Reshaping Society, a podcast where we dive into conversations that matter, especially those that many of us tend to avoid. I'm Eva Bothra, and today we're confronting a topic that is as urgent as it is uncomfortable. Something that affects many, but is often misunderstood, misinterpreted, and sadly ignored: rape and sexual violence. While we hear the words often enough, most of us don't fully grasp the full scope of the trauma, the legal hurdles, or the hidden dynamics at play, both for victims and society. This is exactly what this channel aims to raise awareness about. We must talk about the aftermath, the silence that follows, and how we're conditioned to ignore the red flags. If you're listening and you're in your late teens or early 20s, this conversation is for you. This is not just about the legal definitions or shocking headlines. It's about the reality behind these cases, the situations we as young adults find ourselves in, and the choices we make that shape our understanding of consent, respect, and boundaries. This is an essential conversation for each of us to have, especially as we step into relationships and the world as an adult. I've seen countless of my peers go through this, and I feel as though if they just had the right information, they'd at least have help in getting over the trauma, if not preventing it. To dissect these critical issues, I'm joined by two expert women in their fields. First, Nidhi Patil, a renowned lawyer and a founder of her own firm, a strong advocate who's practicing before the High Court of Karnataka, and alongside her, we have Kalpana Tanwar, a mental health specialist and a psychotherapist with over 25 years of experience in her field. Thank you both so much for being here today.
Thank you, Eva, for having me.
Thank you, Eva. You're a very brave girl and I wanted to support this very difficult subject you're talking about. So thank you for having me.
Let's dive right in. There's a lot involved in the legal side of the rape cases that most of us don't know about. I always thought if you report it, there's going to be a trial and justice is served. But that's rarely the full case. After doing countless research and hearing it from my own peers, I wanted to know about the full story of it. What's, in your experience, Nidhi, what's the hidden challenges survivors face when they decide to report assault? And what do you think is involved emotionally and legally when they step into this process?
So I think when the incident happens, right? Firstly, I think your complainant, that's how I would like to address them, is in a state of shock and she doesn't know who to approach or what's going on. There's a lot to process, right? I'm sure Kalpana will walk us through that, but there's a lot to process. So I don't think going to the police station or even talking to someone as close as her parents would be an option. So speaking from a legal perspective, she can approach her parents, she can approach somebody very close to her, and she can walk right to the police station, whichever one. Let's suppose if it's happened 20 kilometers away, but she lives elsewhere, she can still go to her area police station and she can report it, and thereafter it will subsequently be transferred. Once she reports the crime, she will be subjected to rather a medical examination to ensure, or to get the evidence which is required in the cases of rape. Now there are a lot of guidelines by the Supreme Court. There is even a circular from the Ministry of Home Affairs about how a complainant or a victim, as you may call them, should be treated. There will be a woman constable or a woman officer who's always stationed in the police station who will take this information, and the victim or the complainant will be treated with utmost sensitivity. Even during the trial, which is perhaps the next stage, right? Even there will be in-camera proceedings. That is, it would just be her and the judge when her statement is being recorded. And there are even guidelines advising the judges and the lawyers to be sensitive when questions are being put across to the complainant or the victim when they're in the box, right? So you cannot dwell directly into the incident, which could be very scarring or traumatizing, or, which will have no bearing or consequence to the case, but just to give her a jolt or, throw her off. So those kind of questioning, that line of questioning and that kind of behavior is slightly looked down upon. So with respect to safeguards, textbook safeguards, the guidelines by the Supreme Court, there are quite many, but I think implementation is where we lack.
So when someone comes to you, what state are they in? And what do you do thereafter with your experience?
I mean, of course, there's a lot of panic, commotion, shock, they are lost. Usually you're never really approached by the complainant directly. It is the family, right? Unless the complainant, of course, is very brave and is or has started processing what has happened with her and wants to take things forward. So as a lawyer, your role when you're defending the complainant is very limited. You may assist them in going to the police station, help them in registering an FIR, etc. But the role of investigation lies solely with the state. So the police will gather evidence, will do their investigation, and they will put forth a charge sheet which gets presented before the court. And thereafter, the trial is conducted by the public prosecutor, who is representing the state. So the complainant lies, or rather the complainant, to put it in simpler terms, is the client of the public prosecutor, or the state will be assisting her in prosecuting this crime. So even if somebody wants to engage a lawyer, we can just in a capacity assist the public prosecutor, help with applications, research, assist him, but never really lead the trial per se.
All right, Kalpana, I want to bring you in here. Can you walk us through what the victim is facing in this sort of turmoil, and how does the legal entire process weigh on them emotionally?
So first of all, I want to say, in all my years of experience, I have not to date have anyone who has walked in and said, I am a rape victim. It is something almost impossible to talk about. So my client comes in with different kinds of problems, different issues, and very slowly, after building trust and being confident in themselves, feeling that I will support them regardless of what has happened to them in their lives, may at some stage mention that, I went through this experience. So I think very few people take legal recourse. Most people live with it on their own. They might confide to their near and dear ones or to their friends, and general advice is, oh yeah, okay, now you'll get over it, forget it. And of course, the victim almost never forgets. They may not talk about it, they may whitewash it in their brain, but the trauma of what they have been through will stay with them forever. Some of them will process it. There are many different ways of processing it. I'm a psychotherapist. One of them is talk therapy. You process it. Maybe some people will choose religious recourse, or they will do something else. So each one of us has our own way of trying to manage the issue.
So a lot of people don't even understand fully what happened to them. So they don't even know if it classifies as rape. So what do you recommend to those people who are just dealing with what happened to them?
You know, one of the biggest problems about a crime like rape is discussing it. If a person says they've been raped, and then you start asking them, what happened? What happened? It's not helpful, because they have to relive the trauma to talk about it. So it's really complex, it's really difficult. The victim goes through the trauma of rape. Reliving, re-talking, re-relating, re-recording is equally traumatic. So nobody really wants to hurt themselves again and again by talking about it. And yet, I believe in talk therapy. So the victim should be able to talk in their own time when they are comfortable. And at that point, it's really not about who did it to them. It's about what their experience was.
So what about those people who don't understand fully what has happened to them? Or a lot of cases where there's a drunken mistaken of consent. So they're not really sure what has occurred to them. There's a narrative of rape where if it does not fit into the stranger danger narrative, victims don't know what classifies as rape. So what do you think they should do in that situation?
I think parents, family have to be vigilant from a very young age, and they have to believe their child when the child says that something has happened to me. If a victim has to prove to their near and dear ones that I have gone through this terrible experience, please believe in me. I mean, that is a really sad case. And I think that is what happens almost all the time. Because denial is something we all want to do when you hear the word rape.
I think, Kalpana, you made a very interesting point when you spoke about denial, because families are, or even friends, if there's an instance where a friend says, hey, I think last night my boyfriend got drunk and I was drunk too and this happened. I said no, but I don't know. I'm not feeling good about it. You would probably have some friends who would say, Arey, it's okay, he's just your boyfriend. If you don't do this, he'll probably go to someone else. This is some kind of ill advice. I mean, I'm not promoting this kind of behavior, but, the idea of consent as a word is picture clear. No is a no. What is consent is very clear, but how people interpret it is something very different, and that leads to denial. Even families sometimes are in denial that, oh, this happened to my daughter. I don't think this could have happened to my daughter. This happened to my sister. No chance, because there is a social stigma, a thing that is attached to a woman's, character through this whole incident. So I think denial is how people would proceed forward, and I think till the victim or the complainant takes that bold step of coming forward, I think a lot of time would have transpired between the incident and now, and a lot of people would have forgotten or as you said, would deny completely that this whole thing would have happened.
See, one of the complexities of the whole rape issue is something you just brought up about date rape. That's a different issue according to me. Because these are two consenting adults who are spending time together and who have an agreement between them to be intimate to some level. And then that boundary gets pushed. So that's a different issue. A rape is when there is an aggressor and there is a victim, and the victim stands absolutely no chance of resisting.
Resisting, okay.
So you think there's a difference between date rape and rape in general?
If a client came to me and said that my boyfriend pushed my boundaries, I think there is less trauma involved than a client coming to me and saying that many years ago I was raped. And generally when they talk about it, it is something that happened many years ago. Or they talk about it, it's happening now for me and I can't manage my life. Nobody comes and says it's happening now. The presenting problem is never the real problem. So they will come with other issues. I have medical issues, I cannot get on with my family, I cannot work properly, this is happening to me, what's going on? And over a course of time, the rape issue will get discussed, may emerge and get discussed. And it takes a very brave person to speak up and say that I have been raped or I'm going through a rape situation on a regular basis in my environment, I don't feel safe in it. And Help me.
I think I disagree slightly when you say that, date rape or an aggressor kind of a rape are different things. It's slightly less violent. I still feel it's a violation.
Of course, it's a violation.
No, I understand. What I mean is maybe there could be spectrums, there could be degrees, there could be a sense of familiarity or, marital rape or date rape, different things. I understand that. But it doesn't take away from the fact that there is a violation, there was no consent, and the aggressor, the perpetrator, accused, whatever you'd like to call them, has been blinded by all of this and still continued. Right? My relationship with the accused or aggressor would not change the fact that I'm still violated. To what degree, the kind of trauma and the kind of implication that it can have may vary, which I agree. But it stands straight that it's still a violation, is what I feel.
And your relationship will change.
Change, yes.
You cannot
how
say
I view them.
Yeah, even if it's a boyfriend-girlfriend and date rape has happened and they continue being boyfriend and girlfriend, the relationship has changed.
Yeah, even with the marital
Whether
rape.
they admit it or not, even with the marital situation.
It takes away the intimacy,
Yes.
it takes away the relationship
Yes.
between the husband and wife, and
Yes,
sex
it
merely
affects-
becomes a chore.
It affects the relationship in many ways.
So date rape, marital rape, it just leaves people more and more confused about what they're going through right there and there, because it does not fit in the traditional narrative of rape, as you mentioned. So what can these individuals do to better process what's happening to them, what has occurred, and how they can move past it in their relationships or in life?
Very good question, Eva, and a difficult one to answer. I would say in a marriage or in a committed relationship, sitting down and talking. When you're sober and not in the mood. Because while it's happening, you can't do anything about it. Find time to be in a quiet, calm space and talk about it and let the other person know that it's not okay. And the other person also needs to sit down and listen to it. Sometimes a mediator is involved. Mediator could be a friend, a family person. It could be somebody like me. The woman may come to me and say, my husband doesn't get it. When I say no, I mean no. To explain to the husband that you have to take the no seriously. Now, however, there is cultural context in this. Women are discouraged from being sexual people. So even if they want to say yes, it is likely they will say no, because that's how they're supposed to behave. So how is a man to know that no means no, or that no means, okay, try a little harder and I'll say yes?
I mean, let's just fit this into an Indian perspective, where we see in a dining table, you're sitting and you say no to more food, but they still keep serving more and more food. Or you're not supposed to back answer to elders. The overall concept of no in an Indian background is not understood. So do you think this really impacts how a woman is brought up and in their relationships?
Great question. Because the root of the problem is not being able to say no very clearly at the age of, in your teens or as an adult. It starts from a very young age, and we do not like our children to say no to us. I have a granddaughter, so when I meet her every year. So I met her last year and I hugged her and I kissed her and I pinched her cheeks. And she said, no, Ajji, don't do that. And it hurt me. I was shocked. I said, how come, Mira? Why? So she said, I don't like it. So I could see the room go quiet. And I went quiet. And I said, good for you. Stick up to no. It hurts me that you say no to me, but I have to encourage you to say no when you mean it. And of course, I got a big hug and a kiss after that from her. And it made up for everything. But that's the point when I was faced with it. It's easy for me to tell my clients, oh, be firm with your children and whatever. I had to face it from my own grandchild who says, no, you can't hug and kiss me. So now I take permission from my grandchildren. How about a hug? And if people say, oh, you're being so American now, what are you doing? I said, no. If they don't like it, I have to deal with it. I cannot impose what I want from them if they don't want to give it to me. And I have to learn to respect their wishes from a very young age. And I want to model my behavior and I want other parents to watch it. Other grandparents think I'm crazy, but that doesn't matter to me. I know what I believe in, and I want to empower my granddaughters to say no, say it firmly, and know that they can be heard.
The takeaway from this is that the parents and the grandparents already have to get in that mindset that no means no.
I mean,
It's a long and painful journey.
Yeah, I think that makes your granddaughter's thing easy to lay a boundary. If she can lay that boundary with her grandmother so easily, with a stranger she can lay it far more easily.
All boundaries start at home. A child's whole world is the home. And when a child puts up a boundary, if they are acknowledged and respected, the child knows that the wider world will also accept their boundary, and they'll become stronger and be able to set up a boundary.
What should they do as victims to process it thereafter? Because the violation was still made, and even after talking about it and saying, okay, it won't happen again, but what do they do to process
Stop thinking of
the
yourself
first?
as a victim. The minute you are a victim, you are helpless. Stop being a victim. If you are in a relationship, stand up for yourself and push back. This victim business is over and done with. Women should stop being victims. It doesn't help at all. You know, when you say I'm a victim, it's poor me, it happened to me. Well, don't be a poor me and don't let it happen to you. Learn to be strong. And if it did happen to you, then learn to stand up for yourself and push back. You're inviting more and more of that behavior. Stop being helpless. Victimhood is being helpless and getting beaten up.
But what about the trauma?
The trauma should make you stronger. Again, I'm saying should make you stronger. It's easy for me to say. Every person handles it differently. So the whole thing about psychotherapy is it's a one-on-one or with a couple. So I can't have general rules that fit all. It doesn't work like that. And that is why it is so complex.
You know, that recent case in France where the husband had drugged his wife and she was assaulted in her, unconscious state by multiple men who she is familiar with on daily basis. You know, she's facing trial. And she is bold, she is brave, she's coming out in the media. Maybe that's because her conditioning and in a European society, and there's no victim blaming or there's no poor
That's
you.
not true. In every society there is victim
Could be.
blaming.
But maybe she's not.
And the case you're mentioning, sorry to interrupt, I think she's 70 years old.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
she's talking about something that happened a couple of decades back, I think.
And happening repeatedly over decades.
Over decades, yes.
Right?
So you also come to a stage in your life where you say, before I die, I got to see justice. So she stopped being a victim. So to reach that mentality, I'm sure was not easy for her. And even, you don't want to call yourself a victim, but somehow society is looking at you like, oh, poor thing, So somewhere that conditioning is automatic in your mind that, oh, I am a victim. And if you're bold and brazen, you're going to the station directly and you sit across a misogynistic inspector and you tell him, I want to file a case of rape, you're not going to be looked on kindly by anyone in the station, right? You may receive some sympathy. You may have some women cops coming to your assistance because that's the procedure. But definitely there is going to be that, hey, this woman is, Nidhi, thank you for bringing that up, because according to me, the next most traumatic thing in a rape case is to go to the police station and report it.
Yeah.
I mean, what can be more horrific than that? I'm sorry. We know there's nothing like justice in this case and nothing is going to happen. So women should go forward and they should report it. But it's really, really difficult.
It's very difficult.
And they need a very solid support system behind them. Every step of the way, they need a solid support system.
This issue is very complex because it depends on who is the accused. In what environment was this done? Was it that I was walking randomly on the road, pulled across on the side and, done and dusted with? What is my family background? Do I bring shame to my family if I voice this? Or my family is the one to stand behind me and say, you go ahead, you fight this trial, we will be with you, All these factors play a role in creating that victim mentality or in creating the strength in a woman to go ahead and, file a complaint or, fight the trial. it all depends on multiple circumstances. If it is somebody who she knows or she's been in a relationship for a very long period of time, people are not going to look at her kindly. They'll say, I mean, your relationship is out in the
It's
open.
like you allow them to go third, but you don't consent to fourth.
Right.
But why did you allow them to go to third?
Yes. It's very complex. Violation may be simple, consent may be simple, but the process is very complex.
So you think more than like the legal aspect of it, what do you think the victim can do, like to process the violation?
I would say seek therapy. More than your society and everyone helping you, your mental strength, your inner strength is what is going to put you through this case through and through. When I have clients coming even for divorce, maybe slightly off topic, I sit them across and I tell them that this is a long battle you're going to fight. Courts are not going to be nice, your husband's not going to be nice, there is a custody battle, maintenance battle, etc. Are you mentally prepared to sit through all these cases? Please think about it and then come back. Because it takes a lot to fight a battle. And if you're not going to be a victim and you're going to be a fighter, then you need to have a strong mentality, you need to have a strong mind, and for that, I think you need to seek therapy, you need to seek help.
All right, just bringing in a little age factor here. So if you're below the age of 18, you need parental consent to go for therapy.
Not at all. In school, don't you have a counselor where you can just walk into the counselor's office and say, I'm having a problem? And maybe the problem is with my parents?
Right, but then there's always a added thing that they always have to report back to your parents.
Okay, so suppose I have a minor coming to me. Parents bring the minor. Immediately, I will tell the parents, A, is your child coming willingly? Only if the person comes with, no, it's my child, they will be willing. Okay, fine. The first thing I tell the child is, whatever transpires between you and me will not get reported to your parents. Unless there is something you are trying to tell your parents which you are unable to say. So I will say it for you, or I will coach you how to say it in a way that your parents can hear you.
Right, so I mean, therapy sounds wonderful and all, but it's again expensive. And again, you said parents have to bring you there. You don't just go in there. So what do you think about those people who are going through it through parents? But it's a very stigmatized thing, especially in Indian society. So how do these individuals, step up for help? Because I've seen a lot of people just go through online chatbots for help. They don't have like a system where they can go to the therapist and speak about it without their parents finding out. Because a lot of people are not fine with their
parents will not
parents
find out. A child can go to a therapist saying, I've got a stomachache, I've got a school issue. And then tell the therapist, I've got this rape issue. The therapist does not have to report to the parents. There is confidentiality.
But there's also a thing of how do you speak about it?
Of course, it's difficult. There's no two ways about it.
So as a therapist, what would you guide?
As a therapist, I will never ask, did you get raped? I'll give you an example. There was a young child in a school who told his parents that I'm being molested. Young child. This is not rape, molestation, sexual molestation. Child came home and told the parents. This happened with the parent and group of friends who got very upset, angry, felt the child was being violated and said, let's go to the police station and report it. And somebody in that group called me up and said, what do you think? The first thing I said, do not go to the police station. Let us establish facts. How are you going to prove that the child got molested? Is there any proof? Okay. What is the family atmosphere? And who is this child and how does the child behave normally? So the family started coming to me for therapy, and the family was a very dysfunctional family, very volatile relationship between husband and wife, and the child was getting absolutely fed up and traumatized by the family atmosphere. And one of the things the child had done was stand on the balcony and say, I'm going to jump if you both don't shut up and keep quiet and stop fighting. Now that child reports molestation in school. I'm going to say, parents, get your act together.
I think we've covered a lot of problems, but what has been the progress towards each of these things in terms of law for women?
It's been a journey. It's all out there on record. So I'll just briefly take you through certain things. Back in 1972, there was this minor tribal girl by the name Mathura in one of the towns of Maharashtra. She didn't have parents. She was supported by an elder brother. She wanted to elope, or she eloped with her boyfriend back in the day, and her brother filed a missing persons complaint in the police station. Now, when he did, they brought back Mathura and her boyfriend to the station. They sorted the issue out and everything, and they asked everybody to leave except Mathura. So Mathura was taken back of the police station, and she was raped by two of the constables. One is Tukaram and the other is a name I'm forgetting. She was raped, and when she came out, she was crying, she was in tears, she was screaming. And when she did that, there was an outcry by the public who were really upset and pissed off by the whole situation, that the police station had no choice but to register a crime against their own constables. Now, when this went into trial in Maharashtra before the Sessions Court, they were not looked on very kindly. There were some remarks about the complainant, about Mathura herself, where it was as though she was habituated to sexual activities. So this may not be considered as rape because, it's something that she has gone through, and by two policemen, it should have been okay. These were not the exact words, but this is the tone and tenor of the judgment which was passed by the Sessions Court. Then Mathura didn't give up, a fighter, I must say. She appealed before the Bombay High Court. There, the judgment was reversed. And there came in the concept of consent and passive submission. So the judge, he or she analyzed that this 15-year-old girl was being assaulted against her wishes by two hefty policemen, and she could have cried, she could have resisted, but there is little she can do considering her vulnerable position that she was in. So the passive submission does not amount to consent, and they were convicted. When this was appealed before the Supreme Court reversed the judgment. This happened, I think, back in 79 or 80s. There's a lot of media outrage. There are a lot of legal professors, including Upendra Bakshi, who have thereafter written to the Supreme Court that, you are supposed to be the protector of our rights. And, people are looking to the Supreme Court for the protection of their rights, and this is not okay. But there was no review, nothing by the Supreme Court. Finally, the Parliament and the government, they took laws into their hand, and then came about the 1982 Criminal Amendment Act, the Second Amendment. Now, through this, Section 114A of the Indian Evidence Act was added, wherein in the cases of rape, there is a presumption in favor of the woman that the crime or the rape has actually happened. And it is on the defense or the accused to rebut this presumption. That is, they have to lead evidence to that effect. So there is always a presumption in favor of the complainant or the woman. And then there were new amendments and sections which were added in the 1982 amendment to strengthen rape laws further. Then came 2013, the famous Nirbhaya case. Justice Verma committee had also brought in some wonderful suggestions, including making rape laws gender neutral, adding marital rape into the ambit of rape, etc. But very few were considered by the parliament and, in fact, enacted. It's just sad to know that you have to have a sensationalized rape case and a large media outcry for laws to become more stringent, or, for the parliament to wake up or the judiciary to wake up. I wouldn't say judiciary to wake up, but yes, for the parliament to wake up and make such laws. So they are leaning in that favor. The BNS now has included that sex between husband and wife would not be considered rape unless the girl is of the age 15 or lesser. So before it was 18 and lesser, now the age has gotten down much lesser. So this is the progress we're seeing, but apart from that, the Supreme Court has been active in laying down the guidelines towards how women or the complainant must be treated, what in-camera proceedings are, how their evidence must be tendered or taken, how the trial must commence. Within 60 days, charge sheet has to be filed. All these guidelines are being put in place because justice delayed is justice denied. But the sad part is that justice is being delayed for whatever administrative reasons or whatever that it could be,
Nidhi, if I could add, the word rape itself is so horrific that nobody wants to use it, nobody wants to think about it. The best lawyers and High Court judges are still human beings and they will still cringe at the word. It is one of the most traumatic, disgusting, low kind of human behavior that is extremely upsetting to even think about and talk about. And that has a huge impact on everything that we do. Our laws, punishment, everything is tainted by the word. Whatever culture you come from, it's horrific.
But unfortunately, it doesn't take away from the fact that it still happens, and someone has to get down there and do the dirty work and, speak of this without, cringing or, still do their job.
Which is why I'm appreciating Eva and I decided to come. My friend said, why are you going for this? What are you going to talk about? It's horrible. So I said, well, here's a young girl who's willing to take the step. So I will go along with her.
Yeah, we hear all of this. There's cringing and it's a very serious topic. And yet I see my friends, peers, acquaintances joking, actively laughing about instances like this. Consent has become a joke in social media nowadays, and everyone's come up with this new Sigma mentality. What sort of, direction are we heading to as society? And do you think this will have a very profound impact on victims?
Again, we're using the word victim. And then you're talking about social media. So if you're talking casually about rape, it's not the right thing to do. There's nothing casual about it. At the same time, when you're very edgy about something, you tend to make jokes about it to cover your discomfort and to bring it out into the open. I would not condemn people for doing it. I would just say you're talking about a very uncomfortable subject in not the best way, but at least you're talking about it.
I just feel if it'll just become a joke more than a serious topic.
If everything is too serious, nobody will talk about it. Making jokes is one of the ways we cope with stress. And a lot of people have been raped. A lot of people have committed rape who are completely under the radar. And in their own consciousness, they don't see themselves either as an aggressor or as a victim because it is so horrific. So when people joke about it, it's edgy behavior. They're on the margin of deep discomfort. And that's why they have to make jokes about it. I don't think it's cool at all, but I'm just giving you an explanation of what I think may be going on.
Because there are some people who randomly put it in comments, I don't want to say it on camera, but I wish you get so-and-so. And I don't think it's okay to say it. Even in humor, there's a fine line between good humor and not. And to wish a violation upon somebody is definitely not all right. A violation on somebody's mother, somebody's sister, and people just very casually put it on the internet because it's a few types, It's not okay. In my opinion, it's not okay.
So as a victim, seeing it, what advice would you give to that person to sort of stop feeling the discomfort they feel?
I'd say just get off social media, okay? It'll help you in many ways.
Or I'd say build a thick skin. This is going to happen.
Yeah. Deal with it, and one of the best ways to deal with it, according to me, is get off it. I don't approve of it at all. If something upsets me, I don't need to go into a place that upsets me. And that's a decision young people have to make. You have to take the call. So it's not okay.
It's even a sense of security which you build that, okay, this incident has happened with me, but this does not decide my self-worth. I would not let anybody else make me feel anything less than what I am because of one incident. I will not let this dictate my life. When people build that mentality, of course, through therapy, through family, through conditioning, etc., these sort of jokes will just pass by them like a gush of wind, They would not stand affected by it. They would turn around and probably give a witty comeback, or they would just not feel the need to answer it because they know that they're not in the same place, right? A very ideal situation, but I think this is something that one should aspire.
Before we wrap up, I'd love to hear your thoughts on how we can shift the conversation in our social circles around rape and consent in a proper manner.
Well, certainly talk about it more. We can raise our sons to be more responsible. We can raise our daughters to be stronger. We can learn to respect boundaries, because boundaries kept at home are boundaries which a child can take outside.
So as a friend, how can I better support my friend who's gone through this.
Okay, so I would seriously advise you to refer your friend to a therapist, and I would also advise you not to become your friend's therapist, because the burden of being a therapist will be as great as the victim's burden, because it's not something comfortable to talk about, and if you're not trained for the job, I would suggest don't do it.
All right. I mean, these thoughts have changed my perception, and I'm sure it'll change all of our viewers' perceptions also. Thank you so much for joining me here today. It really means a lot that we've come up and spoken about such a stigmatized topic and taken a step to help people get awareness about this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eva.
These are tough, often uncomfortable topics, but conversations like these are the first step towards real change. Remember, whether it's offering support, educating yourself, or challenging the norms, each of us has a role in reshaping society into one that's more aware, respectful, and compassionate. If you found these insights helpful, please consider sharing this episode. Hit the like button, subscribe to stay connected, and don't hesitate to share your thoughts in the comments. Let's keep this conversation going, not just here, but with our friends, families, and communities. Together, we can create a space where everyone feels safe, heard, and empowered. Thank you for listening to Reshaping Society. Until next time, stay informed, stay compassionate, and take care.